Can Zhen Huan, blessed with both beauty and talent, truly outshine all in the imperial harem and enjoy everlasting favor? The small unmoored boat slightly rocked and rippled the water as I boarded. I felt the boat tip a bit, indicating it was heavier on one side, but I thought nothing of it and simply untied the rope. Just as I was about to row, the sound of a patrol of guards passing by with the distinct clacking of their boots startled me. In a panic, I hid in the cramped cabin. Suddenly, my foot slipped on something soft and warm, as if stepping on an object, which let out a loud ouch in surprise. It was a man's voice, familiar somehow. Before I could react, someone from the shore shouted, "Who's in the boat?" My heart nearly leaped out of my chest, racing wildly. I closed my eyes and whispered in dismay, thinking that if discovered, all the efforts of the day, including Mei Zhuang's situation, would be in vain. However, in the cramped darkness of the cabin, a pair of bright eyes flashed with surprise and perhaps disbelief. A hand quickly covered my mouth and a voice lazily called out from the cabin, "Who dares disturb my pleasant dream?" The voice wasn't loud, but it silenced the previously aggressive tone from the shore. Someone apologized, saying, "I did not realize Princely was here. Please forgive the disturbance." Xian Qing, known for his casual demeanor, seemed impatient and yawned, gesturing dismissively. "Be gone. Don't ruin my mood." Xian Qing's presence at such an hour raised no questions, as his old residence, Liu Kaiyun Pavilion, was nearby. It was common for him to stay there when visiting the Empress Dowager in the inner palace, away from the concubines' quarters. Once the shore was quiet, he said, "You can come out now." After making some muffled noises, he realized his hand was still over my mouth and quickly let go. I peeked out from behind the cabin's curtain, feeling my face burn with embarrassment. He seemed slightly awkward too, but didn't dwell on my unusual attire. Instead, he offered, "I'll take you back." Too nervous to speak, I nodded eagerly, hoping it would ease my tension and confusion. With a strong push, the boat smoothly moved away from the shore, heading towards the center of Tai Pool. As we glided further away, my racing heart gradually calmed. The capital city, where Zhou City is located, lies to the south of Taiping Xingong, so the heat of summer lingers into early autumn. The lotus flowers in Tai Pool bloom longer than those in Fanyu Lake. But by late September, the scent of the lotus flowers is overwhelmingly sweet, signifying their peak and imminent decline, while the fresh fragrance of lotus leaves, water chestnut leaves, and reeds is distinctively refreshing. The lotus flowers sway gently in the misty waters, with palaces and pavilions shrouded in the fog. The distant red palace lanterns reflect on the water, creating a dazzling effect. The lake ripples gently, as if I'm sailing through a sea of stars, enveloped in a dreamlike fantasy, utterly enchanted by the surroundings. Seeing the boat's stern piled with lotus flowers, I voiced my confusion. It's the end of August, and there are not many lotus pods left. Why are there so many fresh lotus flowers for your highness to pick? He rowed gently, his tall figure reflecting on the shimmering water, his presence as serene as the wind beneath the pines, casually replying, "Perhaps these are the last bunch of lotus flowers of the summer. My nightly visits to the depths of the lotus pond have disturbed the herons and egrets, allowing me to gather these few for a vase." I looked up at the clear moonlight. "Does your highness like lotus flowers? I admire them for rising out of the mud unsoiled and washing away the murky without becoming enchanting." He replied with a gentle smile. Our sporadic conversations flowed with the water, and the duckweed that parted for our boat soon closed behind us, as if it had never been separated. With no one around, I climbed out of the cabin and sat at the bow. My nose, quite sensitive, detected a fragrant scent unlike that of lotus flowers. Curious, I asked. "It seems to be the scent of iris, which is unusual for this season." Xian Qing replied, "A sharp nose indeed. It belongs to me." He looked at the crescent moon with a light, breezy smile that seemed to glide across the water, stirring ripples that reflected the moonlight like scattered silver. "The Mountain Spirit by Chu Yuan speaks well of the fragrant iris." I covered my mouth to stifle my surprise and laughed. "It seems your highness might have someone special in mind." He simply smiled and didn't reply, rowing faster. Noting Xian Qing's relaxed demeanor, I smiled. "Such leisure and elegance, for your highness to be drifting on Tai Pool in an untethered boat at this late hour." He returned the smile with a light one of his own, looking back at me. Zhuangzi spoke of being well-fed and wandering freely, like drifting in an unmoored boat, nothing to do after a full meal but to roam for pleasure. An idle man of wealth and status can only find enjoyment in such wanderings. Then teasingly, unexpectedly, today I share the boat with a beauty, giving me a sense of rowing on Taihu Lake with Shishir. I responded more seriously, if I were not aware of your highness's true intentions, I might have taken offense. Please do not compare me to Shishir again. Xianqing laughed lightly, dismissing the concern. Why does the consort join those commoners in thinking Shishir was a disaster for her country? I shook my head gently. If Shishir was blamed for the downfall of Wu, who then could be blamed for the demise that followed in you? He seemed puzzled. With such understanding and insight, why make such a comment earlier? Holding a lotus, its fragrance filling the air, I explained. Fanli was Shishir's lover. Yet, he personally sent the woman he loved to be a consort in the enemy state of Wu, a fate most tragic. Even if they were later reunited and roamed Taihu Lake together, her feelings must have changed from those of the young girl washing silk by the village stream. To be sent away by one's beloved, only to return to him in old age, one must ponder the depth of Shishir's sorrow. He paused, a brief flash of astonishment crossing his clear eyes. With a smile and a hint of undisguised joy, he said, Historians may lament Shishir or condemn King Fuchai of Wu, but none blame Fanli. I have never heard such a profound view. Suddenly he bowed deeply, causing the boat to rock slightly. Your insight surpasses mine. Caught off guard by his gesture, I quickly grabbed the side of the boat, feeling embarrassed. I was merely expressing my personal thoughts, mere boudoir musings. Your Highness flatters me. Perhaps it was the rocking of the boat that caused something to slip from his embrace and land on my lap, unnoticed by him as he continued. As you said, Fanli is no match for King Fuchai. At least the king truly adored Shishir. I nodded, sighing. Yes, King Fuchai devoted the wealth of a nation to his love for a woman. It was love, not mere favor. If it were just favor, he wouldn't have paid such a price. But for an emperor, this is too extravagant. He seemed to suppress a complex emotion, remarking, To favor without love is the greatest insult to a woman. Something stirred in me at his words I'd never heard from anyone else. Mixed with Mei Zhuang's earlier statements, they surged like a tide within me, leaving me speechless. In the palace, women only wish for the emperor's favor to ensure their survival from day to day. Who dares to aspire for love? Even if I harbored such a hope, I understood that among the myriad choices, I was not the one Xianling would choose. He suddenly turned to me, his gaze sweeping over my face like a gentle stream of light. It seems the consort is deeply moved, a sentiment from the heart. The boat glided into the lotus flowers, with a gentle breeze and moonlight casting the shadows of egrets dancing over the shimmering water. Occasionally red carps leaped, splashing water droplets around. I remained silent, then smiled as usual. Your Highness is too concerned. I was merely speaking on the matter, also lamenting the fate of Shishir's beauty. I didn't understand why his words often left me so touched. Glancing down, I saw the dark water of the lake flowing silently past, my attire reflecting the moonlight's flow, giving off a faint blue hue. On my lap lay an exquisitely embroidered collar ornament with a soft sheen. It was clearly an accessory worn by men, likely belonging to the man before me. I should have returned it immediately, but curiosity got the better of me. Seeing he was preoccupied with rowing, I quietly opened it. The collar ornament was light as air, with several dried iris flowers inside, looking like half-transparent yellow butterflies, still retaining their noble posture and emitting a faint fragrance. I smiled knowingly. The iris is a flower of noble fragrance. Just as I was about to give it back, I noticed a soft red object at the bottom of the pouch. Taking it out and holding it up to the moonlight, I was stunned. In my palm lay a small likeness, exactly the one I had hung on a plum tree in May garden on New Year's Eve. The likeness, expertly crafted, bore my exact smile and features, recognizable to anyone who looked closely. The surprise left me almost speechless, my mind echoing the verses of Mountain Spirit, as if the melody came from beyond, traversing a mystical distance, repeating his words, People of the mountains, fragrant with iris. Perhaps it was the sway of the boat that caused something from his embrace to slip onto my skirt. He seemed unaware, continuing to praise the moonlit night and the beautiful scenery. I felt a pang of guilt, unable to distinguish if the person engaging in deep conversation with me was the same who had carefully kept my miniature likeness and the iris flowers. It wasn't until a gilded rose hairpin from my coiffure slipped and hit my arm that the sharp pain snapped me back to reality. This hairpin, a piece from the jewelry Xianling had given me, was a favorite for its craftsmanship and unique design, and I hadn't wanted to remove it even when disguised as a maid. Its polished surface made it slippery, and it almost couldn't stay put in my hair. The sight of this pin abruptly reminded me of my status as Xianling's favored consort, and I hastily decided it was best to pretend ignorance. Calming myself, I placed the iris and the miniature back into the pendant and calmly called out to him, noting he seemed to have lost something. He thanked me as he took it back, carefully storing it without showing any concern whether I had opened it or not. It seemed irrelevant to him if I had seen its contents. What mattered was his affection for what was inside. Clutching the gold-threaded lotus pouch at my waist, I felt the jade pendant press against my hand, its coolness unnoticed. Lost in thought, I pondered when and how he had obtained the miniature, baffled by the mystery and the danger of keeping such a personal item. Yet, seeing his care for it, I couldn't bear to voice my concerns. As he rode, seemingly detached yet filled with unspoken thoughts, he mentioned, "This pendant is a cherished item. Losing it would have been a great regret." His words pulled me from my reverie and I replied, "Your Highness exaggerates. It's just a pendant." My sigh was so soft only I could hear it. "If it's indeed cherished, Your Highness should keep it private to avoid unnecessary troubles." Before he could respond, we arrived at the small dock behind Tongli Palace. I disembarked, pausing to make a request with a smile and a bow. I once encountered a minor inconvenience in the palace and was fortunate to receive assistance. Should Your Highness hear anything about the events at the Taiping Xinggong banquet, please do not mention our encounter tonight, just like now. It would be my great fortune if Your Highness agrees. Though he didn't understand the full context, he smiled and agreed. "Granted. I'll treat it as a little secret between us and won't tell a third party." He added, "It's been my pleasure to converse with you like a refreshing breeze. Should fortune allow, I'd invite you to my cooling terrace for a gathering to discuss the past and present." "I would gladly offer 3 rounds of drinks," I replied. "The moon has its phases and fate has its decrees. Some things are left to chance, and some pursuits are futile for Your Highness. Summer has passed, and the cooling terrace might be too chilly. I shall not impose." His momentary distraction was evident as his left hand instinctively touched where he'd just placed the pendant. Then he casually said, "The cooling terrace is warm in winter and cool in summer. Should you find the cold unbearable one day, you're welcome to visit. The small clay stove will warm you." His voice faded as if dampened by the water. "I hope that day never comes." An indescribable sorrow and touched feeling stirred within me, as if waking to a garden where winter's ice and snow had transformed into blooming flowers, a beauty and grandeur out of season, too overwhelming to accept. I couldn't forget that my husband is the supreme ruler of this land, and he his brother.
Follow us to avoid getting lost and enjoy endless exciting stories. For more content, please go to the Story Wall homepage to view more exciting novels.